It has been a little while since the World Jigsaw Puzzle Championship was over, but the discussion about it has been going on ever since then. And this video is kind of a result of that. You might have seen that Adam Gray, going as Canadam on YouTube, has published a 6-episode long World Championship recap. Now I have, and I enjoyed it very, very much, and I reached out to him because I thought it would be really, really cool if we could collaborate in some way to create some YouTube content. So that's exactly what happened. We sat down and had quite a long conversation that we wanted to keep as lighthearted as possible. So we ended up talking about our ideal world championship, and that is what you're going to be seeing a discussion about. Because the discussion turned out to be pretty long, we agreed to break it into 2 halves that we're going to be uploading on our channels separately. So this is part 1, and the second half you're going to be finding on Adam's channel. Now I'm going to give the stage to Past Us, and I hope you're going to enjoy the discussion.
This conversation was recorded on October 19th, 2025. This was before the Speed Puzzle World series was announced, and before some other puzzle podcasts have been released with further thoughts, opinions, and details about the 2025 World Jigsaw Puzzle Championships in Spain and the potential 2026 World Championships. Any similarities in recently announced competitions is purely coincidental. We hope you enjoy our chat. Happy puzzling.
Hello everybody, and welcome to another YouTube video, now featuring Adam and me, as we are going to be talking about pretty much the World Championship again, because we have both made a couple of YouTube videos in relation with the World Championship, and we thought it would be pretty cool to sit down together and actually have a discussion about it and keep it to a positive note this time.
Hi, I'm Adam, obviously. And yeah, I think we've both spent some time, I think a lot of us, not just the two of us, but a lot of people have been focusing on the World Championships this year in the past couple years. And yeah, I think this is a good opportunity, cross-Atlantic conversation to take place to kind of see how we might make a few changes, or what our kind of our ideal World Championships would look like. We're not going to spend tons of time dwelling on what's already happened. It's now, let's look towards 2026 and maybe what can be different going forward.
Yes, I do think that it's pretty good to talk as much about it as possible, because as everyone has experienced, there were hiccups in the organization. For whatever reason, it doesn't really matter. But I personally believe that speed puzzling is now developing at such a pace that it deserves a very professional event, especially because the World Championship is the largest advertisement for the entire sport. And I like calling it a sport because I do believe it is. And if it's unprofessional, then it kind of also gives an impression that it's not that serious. And I do believe that it is by now.
I fully agree. It's exploded over the, ever since the pandemic kind of ended, it has escalated so much. And because so many people got into it during that time as well, now it's so well represented around the world. And I think the fact that at this year's World Championships, we saw a decrease in participants, that should be a concern. And there's various factors that go into it. So I think there should be changes going forward, because we want to keep those numbers up. We want the top people in the world there. And we also want people that are testing it out for the first time to be there as well. We don't want to discourage anyone from trying worlds or showing up to worlds in the future.
I do believe that at one point it has to cap, because you can't have tens of thousands of people at the event. And as it is getting more and more professional, most probably some countries are going to have some kind of qualifications as well as to who can go. Because if I think about it, it's one thing that from Spain, which has been the hosting country up until now, they can have 300 people, but also Germany has been sending 300 people. Also the US, in comparison with some smaller countries that had maybe one representative. So at one point, there is most probably going to have to be some kind of a cap, but that's really up ahead in the future. I don't think we're there yet.
It depends on how serious it's going to be considered. Like you said, it's a sport. We'll classify it as a sport. There's clear winners. Things are based on time. You can't debate that. If chess somehow falls into a sport category, this should fall into the sport category. The stamina you need to get through some of these events, the conditions sometimes you have to experience to get through these events. It is. And you mentioned, hundreds of people coming from Spain and Germany because location's so nice for them, and we'll definitely be talking about location. But even Canada had a huge jump in numbers this year. I think we went from 20 or 30 last year to we had over 50 individuals and into the 70s or so when we included pairs and teams. So that's a big jump for us. So I think there's going to be a cap or a qualification system potentially in the future. But if we're taking it super seriously, that might happen sooner rather than later.
That is definitely true. There's also the aspect of the sport developing, that there's already a very, very big gap between the people that are like professionally in it, as in like they are training to be in the final. They do, I don't know how many puzzles a day in preparation for the event. And there's the people that still go there for the party. And so at one event, we have these two types of people merging. And at one point, that's not going to be possible. For now, I really, really love the party aspect, but that's most probably going to go away at some level.
I agree. Because it's something that anyone in the world can sit down and do a puzzle. And at their table, they can practice it. They can realize that they're pretty good at it, but you can practice and get better at it. So it's a rare opportunity, I think, for people to enter a world championship type of situation. And like I have a few things written down that I know that we're going to discuss, and this is one of them as well. But I'm going to wait to get into those. But we do have a few things to go through. So I'm hoping people stick through it. Let us know in the comments if you agree or disagree. I don't think we're going to agree on every point as well. I know exactly which couple might be the case in there. But it's going to be interesting to see all the different comments and how people react to these different viewpoints. Like we're only going to go through a few, but there's so many things people might suggest as well, which also brings into consideration how difficult it is to organize these types of global events. And I think that's worth mentioning. As tough as we may have been on the World Championships this year and in the past, there's a lot that does go into it. Things are going to go wrong, but there's also things you can avoid.
Yes. I think that we both agree on the fact that like what the World Championship organizers have been doing since 2019 is a trailblazer thing. This hasn't happened before, and it got speed puzzling where it is now, and that cannot be taken away from the World Championship organizers that have been working on this. So they have laid the groundwork, and from here on is when you can start polishing of what is happening. Because I also think that the reason that some of the mistakes and this organization has been happening is that both the organizers and the participants are people that have not been to many high-level competitive events. And in that sense, I'm a little different because I'm into competitive dog sports as well. And I have been to multiple world championships, and I have organized a European championship. So I do have some experience with high-level competitions and how they can be organized. I'm not saying that I know everything and I hold the Holy Grail, but I think that I do have some experience that could be useful for the future, hopefully.
And I've not organized anything on that type of scale. I have organized events for hundreds of people. I do have background in things like marketing and such, which is very much image focused and how you present yourself to people. So when I see some of these missteps, I'm like, oh, it's such a missed opportunity. And like, it's very easy to try something and put yourself in a bad light when at the end of the day, there are good intentions, I think, from everybody involved, but it's hard to prove that if you're just making mistake after mistake after mistake.
Exactly. It kind of has to be, it's silly to say better organized, but that's what it all comes down to in the end.
My suggestion to start off with as the first thing is location.
Yeah, I was looking at exactly the same. So,
Yeah,
so that,
perfect.
and you have already alluded to it a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest one, and I think it's the one that is potentially holding the most people back from returning in future years. It is a time investment. I understand, like yourself, coming from Germany, those in Spain and Portugal, Italy, and surrounding countries, it's easier to get there, while someone like myself from Canada or someone from the States, or there is a lot of people, the Australians are a huge representatives. That's a huge journey for them. There was more people from South America this year. It's a time invest. It's so tough to always dedicate a week and a half to Spain. Yeah, so I think rotating locations. Do you have any potential suggestions on what they might consider? We're developing our ideal situation, I guess. That's kind of how we put this. So if we were designing it, what might you think?
Pretty much for rotating locations, it's already one thing that I can bring in from dog sports and dog showing, where the way that this works is that there's a committee, obviously, that sits down every year, and they actually come up with the next 4 years. So you already know 4 years ahead what country it's going to be in, and then they come up with the fifth every year. So they plan about 5 years ahead. The way that this works is it's obviously every year in a different country. Well, it's dog sports, so it's very Europe based, and it's not that easy to travel with dogs, because then obviously you have to carry them on an airplane, whatever. So basically what they do is that every 5 years it's out of Europe. But like I was saying, for dog sports, it's very, very much based in Europe. Most of the countries and most dog show people are in Europe. And that's a very big difference compared to puzzles. But I would kind of implement the same system, but maybe with like a 3-year rotation, as in like 2 years in Europe and 1 year somewhere else. Because I still find that Europe is the easiest to get to, and it's the most accessible for everyone. And that is, I think, very valuable for everyone, even those that are traveling from further away.
I agree that Europe should still be a central aspect of it. In terms of rotating, I think because Spain is kind of where it started, I think Spain should have representation in it. So almost like every 4 years they return to the Dome, where it kind of started. And then the other 3 years we pick places somewhere around the world. So one of those 3 years, yes, definitely somewhere in Europe, for sure. And then we consider, okay, what's the other potential 2 places? And there's so much to take into consideration. Is it based on like how many people are willing to go? Like if it's in Australia, you're going to have a huge Australian representation for sure. But are you going to have tons of people from Europe or the East Coast of North America wanting to make that expensive journey down to there? So there is that risk. If you're planning 4 years out, it does give people the opportunity to kind of think, okay, so I know I need to get ready to go to Toronto in Canada in 2028, or I need to get ready to go to Seoul, South Korea in 2029, like whatever it may be. So, but I do think coming back to Spain every 4 years or so would be a nice kind of acknowledgement that they are responsible for what we're doing now.
I agree in the sense that like Spain could be acknowledged, but I don't agree that it should be returning to the Dome anytime. And I think that's going to be a very different topic. But this was my second time at Worlds, and I already know that I kind of had enough of Valladolid, and it's not appealing anymore, especially because it has to be a week long because the Dome is too small, mostly. And I don't really think that it should be returning there. It would be very nice if it was Spain again, but somewhere else. It could be in Madrid somewhere. It could be in Barcelona. It could be... Spain is huge. Spain has a lot of very, very attractive places. And I think the main issue with the Dome and that it's a week-long event is that not enough people fit into a round. And a lot of the problems or issues that we have with the week-long schedule, the unreleased puzzles, everything else that is going to come up later on, it hangs on how there's not enough people that fit into a round. If there could be 300 people puzzling in one round at one time, it would not be a week-long event. and it could use unreleased puzzles. So that's why I wouldn't bring it back to the Dome, but it could rotate somewhere in Spain. So I do find it very appealing that it could return to Spain more frequently, in a sense.
Yeah, it's yeah, I think we'll talk about rounds later. I think that's going to be an area that we may not agree on, based on what you just mentioned. Not massively disagree, but yeah. Is there any places or countries, I guess? I think every country could be represented with it, but do you think there's any locations that would be less than ideal if we're thinking about the big name countries that are highly represented already? So, like, I'm not going to think of like San Marino or something like that, which is a tiny little location. If we're thinking about the large countries, where might we consider maybe a bit more not problematic, but more challenging to get a large number of representations from the globe?
Well, if I think about it, I would say countries like China, Far East, would be problematic for traveling because they're far away. And the same with Australia, as you were saying, even though I think that, as we have been saying, if the sport is starting to develop, there's going to be more and more professional people. And also there might be sponsorships involved. So like champions from whichever country might get a trip sponsored to the World Championship, which has been the case for Germany this year, for example. So there's sponsorships already happening for some people, either by puzzle brands or by associations or both. So that's going to be making it easier for people to travel as well, especially those that are going for the title. And what other country could be problematic? Well, and at the moment, I don't want to go into politics, but probably the US would be problematic at this point. But things have been changing very, very rapidly. So I really hope that that's going to change very soon.
There's always going to be that somewhat political aspect, which does change constantly. So I'm trying to not consider that. But yes, as someone from Canada, the States wouldn't be high on my list at the moment. But in the future, potentially, it would be. I've been to the States many times and enjoy myself. I know it's a big tourist place, but yeah, I can definitely see them hosting, especially because they also have Ravensburger is massively represented there. So if we're sticking with, and this will come up as well, if we're sticking with Ravensburger as the main puzzle company, then the States would obviously make sense as well. While I did say things like Australia would be very difficult, I think it's kind of worth noting that because it's hosted in Spain, you're going to have more Europeans because it's so much easier to get there. If we had it somewhere, let's just stick with Australia, I think what you're going to see is a huge influx of people from the Southeast Asia nations, Oceania in general, will be much higher represented. So you're going to see some of the European numbers go down, but they're going to be balanced out by those who can't afford to fly to Europe, but they can afford to fly to Australia or Japan or something like that. So it's going to be a trade-off. The people I think that won't make that big journey are probably the ones that are going to this for the social aspect and not necessarily trying to make it to a semi-final round or a finals round as well. So I think you're just going to replace one group with another group, but those top puzzlers, and we can all think of what all those different names are. I'm sure we'll mention a few of them in this, but I can see them still making that big journey. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it.
I also wouldn't be too concerned because, as you were saying, yes, for people on other corners of the world, Australia would be closer. So it would balance itself out. And then I also wouldn't worry about the people that are going for the social aspect because I think they're going to fade out from the world slowly but surely as well, mostly because of the world itself, that it has started speed puzzling all around the world, and there's just so many events now. So you can go to 3 different events instead of spending a week at the World Championship, for example, for the same amount of money, and you're probably going to have like less pressure and still a very, very good time. So there's other events now that the social puzzlers can go to, And the World Championship is going to be something for those that are going for the competition aspect a little bit more.
Yeah, I unfortunately agree. I this was my first Worlds, and I think one of my favorite aspects from it was the people that only knew me through like my social media channels and such that came up and spoke with me, and yeah, I spoke with some of the bigger name puzzlers for sure, but it was the ones that were just new into speed puzzling, and they're like, "Oh, we've been watching your channel, and this has kind of like helped me really get more into it." It's like it kind of felt like what I'm sure like Karen Puzzles did when she's responsible for so many people getting into speed puzzling. And but having people come up to me going, "Oh, I watched the channel, and yeah, it's really helped me stay in it." And these are people that they're not making the semifinals this year. They may in the future, but they felt comfortable coming to a world championship event. So I don't want to discourage those people if possible, but I do understand what you're saying, where at some point there has to be some sort of cutoff line, depending on what direction they choose to grow this. If it's about numbers, then no. If it's about focusing purely on speed and the best of the best, then yeah, they need to pick a lane soon.
I also think that it would be possible to have a world championship and parallel to it like a world open, which would then be partly the less competitive part, where like pretty much everyone can take part, and then there's the actual world championship, which is for the best of the best. So the two things can happen in parallel as well if there's enough planning that goes into it.
For sure. And I think that's a good comment to kind of move on to the second major topic to talk about. And I think you mentioned the venue, a bigger venue. And so you think there should be, we had we'll focus on the individual rounds for now. We had 6 qualifying individual rounds. There were supposed to be 9, and that obviously didn't happen. But do you think 6 qualifying rounds was too many?
Yes, because we end up spending an entire week at a competition. This competition could be 4 days long. And I think 4 days for a world event should be enough. If we could shrink it down to, like, I think the most ideal would be to have 4 qualifying rounds, 2 semifinals, and 1 final. And that would give you a big enough cutoff as well. And yeah, if the venue is big enough, then there's going to be enough people that fit in there.
Yeah, so the 4-2-1, that was the teams, that was a pairs system this year, and that seemed to work pretty well. The only thing I'm hesitant about here with less qualifying rounds is, and maybe it's because it was my first World, so I'm just wide eyes looking at everything, experience everything for the first time. Having more qualifying rounds kind of let you socialize a lot more, and you got to see more people I was able to see more Canadians participate in the different rounds and be there to support them, and people from other countries as well. The fewer rounds we get, the more of you are all in one, so you might start losing that support system, which can make a difference to some people as well. So that's where my hesitancy is with lowering the number of, like, we could have had all 6 qualifier for individual this year on the same day. That was a scheduling problem. Starting at 4 p.m. on that day was on the first day. That made absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I think that the reason for that was really that because they decided to cut 3 qualifying rounds already, that happened like a couple of weeks before the event. So it was already, with people having booked hotels and travels and everything, they couldn't cut the days. So I think that's why they had to like stretch it all out, but then it just wouldn't fit. Like, this is the only way that it could fit the schedule, that there was just like these insane pauses during the day as well, where you had like, I don't know how many hours of downtime, just sitting around and waiting and looking for something to do. Yeah, that's kind of the planning part. That like, it also, the lower attendance than what they expected kind of also cut the scheduling into this weird thing that happened. But yeah, I do agree that it could have, that 6 rounds could be done in one day. I'm not strictly saying that it has to be 4. And I really see
No,
the
no.
counter argument where you need to have like a support system, and it is really cool to have people cheer for you, and that's something very, very nice. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, and we're never gonna get the same type of like fan base where people are flying in to kind of see this type of thing. A lot of people have like a lot of families come together with their husbands, their husbands, and significant others, and such show up. Like we don't need I don't think we need like an arena type of situation. It would be nice for the space, but you're not going to
In a
fill
way,
something like that.
an arena would be amazing. I think, because then it would give space for the audience, which I think is also one of the biggest counter arguments for the dome right now,
Yes.
is that there's just no room for audience, and it's incredibly uncomfortable for people outside who are not puzzling. It's also impossible to get in as you are about to puzzle, because the people are just piling up around the fences. It's also very bothersome for the people that are sitting next to the fence. And during my first Worlds in 24, our team table was right next to the fence, and we just had people talking next to us the entire time, and that is very disturbing. So, like, in that sense, it would be lovely to have an actual audience area that can like sit and watch. Maybe even have their little team zones put up of like flags and everything, because like right now there's no real country areas, and that could also like bring people very well together, because as lovely as it is that you have people gathering outside and watching the live stream, it doesn't make too much sense because the event is going on inside. And people are kind of like cut off from the event while they are there. So that's why I would love a kind of an arena thing. And then the next argument for an arena like event for me is that I think the Swedish and the Polish nationals were in these arena type of places, and it just looks like professional. It looks really, really cool. Especially with the Swedish one, they had like screens put up in the middle so you could like watch from the spectator area of what is happening. You had a screen and you could look at the puzzling at the same time. So it does look incredible.
So I'm really hoping someone from the Canadian Jigsaw Puzzle Association watches this, because our next nationals in May of 2026 will be in a hockey arena. For the first time. We're usually in like a recreation center, but we're growing so quickly. Like our nationals sells out almost instantly. So if you're not trying to buy them like you're trying to buy like concert tickets that are going on sale at midnight, you're gonna miss out. So they're expanding it next year to be in a hockey arena, no ice, which is disappointing, but it was. So yeah, I'll experience the arena scenario next year. But I love what you mentioned with like a team section or country sections in it. I mentioned in one of my videos, I thought that was kind of missing from the opening ceremonies this year, where it's just everyone kind of scattered. I love the fact, like, I think it was only the UK team had like a designated area outside this year with their tents, and it was really noticeable. I liked it. It was like, oh, that's Team UK, and it was nice. If we could have that for everybody, awesome.
Yeah, and then one more like very random idea, but based on that sentiment, if in an opening ceremony there would actually be an opportunity for people to march in with their flags to their anthem to be introduced. So like to actually make like a festival out of it, that these people turned up here for the World Championship and they're representing their countries, that would be very, very beautiful as well. And it also like reflects a little bit of national pride for everyone who are there.
Yeah, and I think national pride was definitely on display throughout the Worlds, and we definitely saw it at the closing ceremonies. But okay, if we had, this is a good, I'm gonna digress here for a second. If we had an opening ceremony where everyone marches in, who comes in first in your scenario? Like, what's the order going to be, do you think?
Alphabetic, and then organizing country as last.
Okay. So alphabetical is, it's fine. It's very Olympics. like alphabetical based on the home country as well, because we see that with the Olympics. It changes depending on it's never like Albania is not always first or whatever the first A country might be. It changes depending on the local alphabet. I was thinking if we did it in order of like the largest represented countries come in first. So by the time we get to these smaller ones who they're not going to have the same support system, they're not going to have the same friends and family type of thing. But if you have that one person from Ethiopia walk in at the end, like that's their moment. That's a huge moment for these really small underrepresented countries. And then yes, you'd have whatever the host country is come in last, but you'd have it displayed somewhere so you can still watch all of this happen if you're not in the actual arena or location yet. But I think I like the country size. Have the biggest country go in first, because they already have their big support system. And they'll be really loud cheering for whoever comes in after them, because again, we're not going to have an audience. We only have ourselves, really.
Yes, exactly. And then obviously there can be like restrictions on like how many people are going to march in, because like you can't have 300 people walk in for Germany. It's just it would be just insane. So it can be like the top 20 or something, so that like the countries themselves can decide who walks in. But I kind of miss that from Worlds in general, to like have some kind of acknowledgement of like what an event this is.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I think that was one of the things I was a bit disappointed in right from like the start of it, because it's World Championships, and like everyone was standing outside waiting to go in for the opening ceremonies, and then as soon as you go in, everyone's dispersed. Like it's just, okay, never mind. Like we had 50 Canadians, and I was around 10 to 20 of them maybe, and I'm like, well, where's everybody else? We were all together, now we're all gone. So it took away from it right from the start. But again, that's an organization kind of setup where if you don't consider the opening ceremonies serious or like a serious kind of thing, then the organizers aren't going to be invested in putting effort into it.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so I'm just looking at the list here. I don't want to spend too much time on each thing. It'd be very easy to, but it is tough. You mentioned something along the lines of having like parallel events, like a World Open and then like a World Championships. If we were, again, it's an ideal scenario. We're in a new country. Let's just say somewhere in Europe. Let's do Germany, because Ravensburger's right there. We're sticking with Ravensburger for now. We have a big arena. We'll say hockey, because Germany does well at hockey. So we have much more space. Would we run the two events alongside each other? So you'd have the open competition running the same time as the championship?
I think so, because you could play around with the numbers. It really depends on like how many people enter whichever competition. But if the two things ran parallel to each other, you wouldn't even have to give separate puzzles for them. They could be doing the same puzzles in the same rounds. They just get different rankings. It could be like divided with the tables, so that like for the organizers and the helpers, it's easier to like know what is where. But like it wouldn't be so much extra stuff. And it would also solve, I think, an issue that we, I think, don't agree on, as far as I know, which is the country rules and who represents what and mixed teams. It could be that the mixed teams go into the open competition. They can puzzle as much as they want, but if they want to go for the world champion title, they have to be with their countries, for example. So that could also already be something that is there for everyone. It's pretty much the same event. It's really just making a difference between, are you competing for the title or are you competing for the puzzling?
Yeah. I initially had an idea where maybe people sign up for the open and they turn out to be incredible and they can be like filtered back into the championship round. But I think that would end up being too confusing. People might use it as an advantage to kind of sneak their way into the final. So I've disregarded that idea in my mind. But yeah, you could have a closing, and I've mentioned this before. You could have a closing event, like a kind of not official event, but you take some of the top people from the open and you bring them together with the championship rounds. And same with like the mixed teams, which I think we'll talk about that next. The mixed teams that do very, very well, but maybe they have to be in the open. But there's that final unofficial event where they do go up, say, against the top teams from the championship, just kind of as a closing ceremony. Everyone's just doing something fun before we all fly back to our home countries. Yeah, I like the idea of it, of a parallel type of system.
Yes, because I think it would open up the event for everyone. And as we have been mentioning it before, it could be something for those that are going for the fun of it instead of for the championship. It could also, like, especially if it's about like lower attendance for the worlds because of like a different location that is not easily accessible for everyone, for example, then the open would bring in those extra people that might have fallen out from the world championship part. That's where I think it could be something that could be parallel to the two things. I don't think it would be too much of an effort because, as I was saying, they could be using the same puzzles, they could be in the same rounds, it's just the classification goes parallel.
I'd probably run it to avoid confusion or people trying to potentially make themselves look faster than they might be. Like, they just want to win, so they're going to go into that separate round. I would say if you came in the semifinals, if you made it to the semifinals in the previous Worlds, you have to go back into the championship round. And that's, so then we just keep those groups of people from taking over the open, where it's supposed to be literally open for everyone. It's competitive, but it's still fun. Like, I can't imagine, say, like, we'll just say Victor just shows up to this situation and he's just like, yeah, I'm going to enter the open, just, you know, we'll see how it goes. Like, that's okay, we know how that's going to go type of
exactly
scenario. But yeah, if you make the finals, definitely you're in the championship route. And then semifinals, you could have a cutoff, I guess, in the semifinals, but I think it's a way to kind of keep track of people that might try to take advantage of a situation or make it less fun for others.
Exactly.
All right, we'll just skip to it then. The mixed teams.
Yes.
I'll start this one off. I don't like it. I understand the reasoning behind it. When it comes to teams, everyone's so international, and especially in Europe, I think more so than any other continent, it's very easy to live in one place and work in another while your passport's from a third country. So there's so many things that need to be taken into consideration. We did see like the winning team this year. That was not the case. That was a very well chosen, specific. There was a purpose on what was going on. As soon as you bring in someone from, like, Hannah coming in from Finland, like, that's not the same situation as what we're discussing here. I think the team did great and well done to them, of course, but we all knew from the start, okay, well, that team's winning it for obvious reasons. I think because the individual round, which in my opinion is the main event, is so country focused, every round thereafter has to be country focused as well.
I agree in that it has to be country focused. And I also don't like mixed teams, but for a different reason. So, okay. Yeah, I am going to point out that for me, it also hits home very much because I was affected by this. I was in a mixed team, with the only difference that we all live in Germany, and two of us are German citizens and two of us are German residents. And the two of us combined have lived in Germany for 25 years. So it's a long time. And we entered when the rule was still that we could be a German team. And we obviously, we put the team together because we wanted to we had the goal of top 30 going into putting together the team. So we did go in with a purpose, and we chose our team so that we could get together to practice and all that. So there was a purpose behind it, and we still entered with the knowledge that we would be a German team, so much so that we still had the German flag on our t-shirts. And then all of a sudden the change came that we are now a mixed team, and the German flag was taken away, which was actually kind of hurtful for me, for example, because I have lived here for a couple of years and I made the effort to learn the language, and I'm waiting on my passport in a way. So I'm working towards citizenship as well, and I have residence. And so to sort of take away the flag. That was not nice, especially that in my other sport, I have been on the German qualified team for the World Championship before and European Championship. So in other sports, they have found a way for people to enter as a German or whatever nationality it is. So there's rules of like how many years you have to live in the country before you can actually take part as that nation. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And then one more like hurtful thing about the entire thing was that when they made that rule change of doing the mixed teams, they didn't update the website properly, which resulted in the t-shirts that you could buy at the t-shirt maker didn't include the mixed team on it. So there were no t-shirts for the mixed teams, which was also not very nice. So the whole thing was just very, very clumsily done. But yeah, so that's where it hits home. And then now my general ideas about it is that I think residents should be accepted, but not like I have lived there for 2 months, now I'm this country, but actually to have some kind of at least 2-3 years or 5, whatever, but to have like a limit. And then if you enter as that country, then for a certain amount of years, you can't change it, which would also make a lot of sense. Because as you were saying, we can have situations right now where we have 4 top puzzlers from different countries get together and make an all-star team, which is also not exactly a world championship kind of thing. While I also agree the achievement can't be taken away from them. It's an amazing achievement. They're incredible together. And also, I know that they are very good friends and they love puzzling together, but it's not necessarily for a world championship, I think.
Yeah, like I don't think anyone on that all-star team, super team, whatever people want to call it, no one on that team is struggling to find a group of 4 from their country. They'll know all the top puzzlers in that country. Like you can easily have an all-star Polish team. That's super simple to do. The Czech Republic, the Czech Puzzle Queens did that this year. They had essentially it was a super dominant team with probably the top 4 out of the top 5, 6, 7 Czech puzzlers on that one team. So it is possible. I do like how you mentioned that you can't change the country for a number of years to stop people from kind of bouncing around in different cases. Like I have dual citizenship. So before I went to my first Worlds this year, and I was thinking about, okay, well, what if the country rule is still in play because we weren't sure what was going to happen with that? My other passport's for the UK. So I could have entered as a UK citizen, even though I only lived there for 1 year a while ago. I was like, do I have a better chance of making the semi-final rounds if something goes wrong? Because there's probably less people from the UK. And then ultimately I decided, then the mixed team rules and playoff rules all came out. I was like, well, that's not going to benefit anything. But I could easily flip between the two, which is not in the spirit of things either. So I think having... once you've signed up, you're set for, 3 years or so. I don't want to make it too long because people do transition for work a lot more now than they used to. So I understand that. But having a limit on how often you can switch to a different country, I think makes sense.
Yes, exactly. And then, as mentioned before, having an open competition parallel to the entire thing, that would make space for all the international friends that want to puzzle together for the fun of it, because they rarely get the chance to do so. So that would then all of a sudden transition everyone that cannot find a team in their country. And then one more thing that has come into my mind is that also the way that the rules are written now is that is that if you are registered for a country on the website, you can't change it again.
Yep.
Which then brings up the problems. Like, okay, there are people who like move from one country to another, and then there are countries that don't recognize dual citizenship. So it might happen, theoretically, that someone changes their passport, they lose their old passport, and they no longer have that citizenship, but then the World Championship website refuses to acknowledge their new passport. So it's clumsily worded at the moment, and I also think that it puts residents in a disadvantage as well at this point, because for me specifically, for example, because now I'm a Hungarian citizen, and if I would want to get a Hungarian team, I wouldn't be able to get one, because the teams that take it seriously enough, they're going to want someone that they can practice with. And I don't necessarily have the resources to travel multiple times a year to the country to practice. So that also brings residents of a different country into a disadvantage in the competition, or finding a team for themselves if they also want to do it seriously. So I do think that some kind of residence acknowledgement has to be involved in the rules at this point.
I'm not gonna feel too bad about your travel concerns, since I'm just from Canada. Getting from one side to the other is next to impossible for puzzle practice. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from that. Yeah, I think that's good for that topic. I don't think there's much more to really.
I also don't think so. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, there's going to have to be new rules about that, especially because the competition is growing. There's more and more people that are involved, and there's more and more needs about this topic as well, including many others. So the rules do have to evolve in that sense to accommodate the growing number of people and situations that are arising.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that's a good segue into the next thing that I have written down here is a set rule book needs to be established, like an official, proper rule book, not just a website being updated whenever someone feels like it. Like we have between the end of the end of World Jigsaw Puzzle Championship in September until sign up starts on January 1st at midnight in Spain time. You have 3 and a bit months. Use that time to sit down and be like, okay, what's worked, what didn't work? Let's actually come up with that official rule book, and we can't deviate from it. Bring in people outside of, whether it's the board, whether it's the organization, whatever it might be. Bring in puzzlers that have been to Worlds once, twice, a few times, and be like, okay, what do we need to do? What do we need to change? Get people's opinions to have things established. And once they're established, that's it. If you don't like it, we can reconvene next October when it's done. But like, how many changes were there in the 9 months leading up to it this year? It was chaos. No one really knew what to expect, and that put people off from going as well, because it was just it makes it look very amateurish in my mind.
Yeah, especially now that there's a ice pack that has formed as well, which is like an international advisory board of experienced puzzle competition organizers that could actually sit down and come up with a rule book or advise on it, as their name suggests. But there are people now who know what they are doing, and so it definitely shouldn't be as whimsical as it has been, of like random changes coming up. And pretty much unless you have the community around you that is warning you about it, or you're constantly checking the website, looking at the rules, possibly with those special websites where you can see the changes that has been happening, you're not going to notice it, because there was also no communication about it at any point. And so much so that there were things that came up on the first day of the event. And even of those major changes, there was no communication whatsoever. It was pretty much word of mouth. And I'm still pretty sure that even though that entire word of mouth thing was happening, there were people who sat down at their competition table and found out about the changes as they got there, which is unacceptable at a competition that is called a World Championship.
Yeah, it was still, I think one of the funniest things that happened this year was when, so I was in the first qualifying individual round this year, and there was the concerns over the cutters that we discovered the day before that we're going to have to do this, which again, but they explained the rules, the new rules to us. You're going to have a minute to open the bag and choose between 2 puzzles, cut one of them open. And they went through all the rules and then said, and they said in Spanish and in English, and they said, if your table mate, make sure your table mate understands, so explain it to them. I'm like, well, if they didn't understand it in English the first, what am I going to be able to do to explain? Like, luckily the person beside me spoke English, so we were both good. But it's just on a whim. seconds before it happens. Now, I don't know if anyone actually opened. I think everyone got it, but I don't know if anyone opened it in that round and just went straight into the puzzles because they didn't understand. A last minute change, it still makes me laugh that it's on the day, seconds before we're supposed to start the World Championship kickoff round, and it's just, we have a rule change.
Yeah, that it kind of turned into a parody of itself at one point with like people signing an online petition like hours before the competition started. So like, because the original idea was not even to have a minute. It would have been literally that the timer starts and you open the bag, take out the box, decide which one you take, and then you cut it open. And then they were expecting that to like work. Yeah. So it was unbelievable. It was really unbelievable of how that was happening. And then I actually heard like a very good parallel of it, that like that's how the World Championship turned into a live Euro Jigsaw Jam, because that's where this happens, that you open a bag, look at your puzzle, open it, you still have like a minute to like look at it, and that's when the timer starts. That's pretty much an online competition happening live.
And I think it takes away from the excitement of it. I've mentioned it before, but if we didn't have that Nations Challenge thing the day before, where that's when we discovered that what the cutters were and the stickers, and like I was my responsibility for the Team Canada was to open the box, and so I was the one cutting it, and I've never felt so many eyes staring at me for so long, because I was like, I don't know how this works. And looking at the other countries, it was the same thing. No one was putting pieces together for 30 seconds to a minute in some cases. The French team, I believe, ripped their box open because they were just like, enough, and destroyed it. But if we go back to what we were talking, if there's a set rule book, if we knew this in advance, we might not be happy about it, but we would know. We can practice it. We can prepare in advance, because every second matters in any puzzle competition, but especially the World Championship. Seconds matter, and if we're losing because we have a plastic poker that won't go through a sticker, I'll be so disappointed if I miss the cut by a few seconds, and that's what the reason was.
And then what I think kind of like was never considered is that people actually have routines that they practice. So most probably you do as well for speed puzzling. You have a way of how you open the bag. You probably also practice it, how you open the bag, take out the box, open the entire thing. Yeah. So people have like a choreography for it. And then a day before the competition, that changes. That throws everyone off. In that sense, again, the dog sports come in. Because the way it works, obviously it's dog sports, and you have to, like, if they change an exercise, for example, then you have to train it again from scratch, because it's a completely new thing for the dog. So if they have like some kind of major change, that is announced 3 years ahead before it comes into effect, so that people have actually time to practice for it. Like, I'm not saying that like in puzzling you're going to have rules that come into effect 3 years later so that people can prepare, but a year is nice.
Yeah, fully agree. I'm just thinking, like, if there's another sport, I'm always going to pick hockey. Like, the game starts with a face-off, but we've decided this time we're just going to throw the puck somewhere and go and get it. Like, you're not ready for that. Starting completely different. There's, again, set rule book with those, and we saw it later on as well in the teams rounds with the slide and hide method with the sheets on top. Again, I was in the first teams round. So, okay, so are we allowed to do it? Are we not allowed to do it? And it was never said you couldn't do it. And I think that's what kind of confused everybody. For my team, we decided not to, because we haven't practiced this. We don't know how it's going to go. Let's just do what we do and stick with it. If it's an extra 5 seconds, whatever. But there's so many things that could go wrong. And I love the example that someone posted online. I think it was through Instagram. And they showed how to do it, but with like a 100-piece puzzle. I'm like, okay, that's a bit different. Like a 1,000-piece puzzle and a massive sheet is a big difference than those little 100-piece ones. So we didn't attempt it, but then they changed it after, I think, round B.
By round B, they changed it. Yes, we were also in that round, and I do remember that there were some teams that did it, We didn't either, because we were like, we're just going to stick to whatever we have practiced already and it works, so why change it? It's just not something you do at a world championship, especially not at a world championship. Even at a smaller competition, you don't do stuff like that. And mostly because people pay a lot of money to enter, and they agree to the terms and conditions when they pay that money and send in their entry. So they kind of agree to those terms that they get at that time, and those shouldn't be changed.
So I think that having that set rule, it wouldn't be that it's puzzling at the end of the day. There's only so many things you can and cannot do, and we'd have a lot of these rules already set in place, but just being extremely clear right from the start and giving people those 9 months, if we're going to keep having this in September, those 9 months to practice as an individual or a team, pair, whatever it might be. So I think that set rulebook, I think, would be welcomed by the vast majority of people. I would struggle to find someone that would disagree with set rules. With the caveat, we can change it after each Worlds and adapt, and because things do come up and people will look for loopholes, as they do, which is also fine. It's part of every sport, and you adapt as you need to. That is it for part 1 of our chat about designing our perfect worlds. The second part will be released shortly over on my channel at Canadam Puzzle. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on the topics that we've covered so far, and let us know if you think we've missed anything or things that we should also be considering. We hope you enjoyed part 1, and we can't wait to share part 2. See you soon.